How? Why? Because he had promised to help Aesir. Because his mother had trained him to care. As Dalinar had worked to make Adolin into a weapon, Evie had worked to make Adolin into one that had meaning. There, within the burning clarity of the perfect duel, Adolin went a level deeper. He understood himself in a way otherwise impossible. Why had he always cared so much that his father be perfect? Why be so worried, then so furious when Dalinar proved flawed? Because Evie had believed in Dalinar. Against all evidence, she loved him, and Adolin, her little boy, desperately wanted her to be right. That was why. That was the final truth of it. With a sigh, Adolin let go. He let her rest, and let his anger flow away like expelled heat from a flame. Welcome back to Following No One on a Stormlight podcast. This week is episode 268, and we are in chapters 132 through 136. Quite near the end of Wind and Truth. Paul, how are you?
I'm good. We are getting into the thick of it. I know there's still much more to happen, but some craziness to talk about this week.
Eliot?
I cannot believe we're saying this. The end is near of The Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This giant book that has taken us 9, 10, nearly 11 months by the time we're done here. Oh man, the end, like I can feel it as I'm flipping the book, right? It's now getting awkward to hold because 90% of the pages are now on one side. And there's only 10% of the book left to go. This is nuts.
Another point in favor of audiobook because I don't have that problem.
Yeah, man, this book. So, all of you physical book readers out there, I'm sure can commiserate with me. Like, my hands hurt after an extended period of reading this book. It is so large and heavy that, like, I'm getting carpal tunnel trying to hold this book in place just to read the pages. It's insane.
Do you have to change your reading posture, your stance because of this book?
And I just about like had to go to the ER after dropping it on my face one time because I was doing the whole, lay in bed and hold it above you.
Yeah.
And I dropped the 8-pound book or whatever crazy heavy this thing is, like straight on my face, and had to get like first aid because it was, this thing is ginormous.
It's a safety hazard. They need to put a disclaimer on the back.
Chapters 132 through 136. Eliot, can you try to summarize the beginning of the Contest of Champions for us?
Oh boy. Okay. Disclaimer. This episode, next episode is going to be the same, is a little nuts to try and summarize because we've reached that point in a Brandon Sanderson Sanderlanche where we're jumping perspectives so quickly. I'm going to do my best to summarize this. It might come out as gibberish, but we're going to try. Okay. Chapter 132. We're going to start there. Adolin is battling against Abadai, and he kind of turns the tide of that battle a little bit, finds a better footing, and starts to kind of fight back after just getting kind of pummeled for the first part of that battle. They're in the throne room, by the way, of Azir, the capital of Azir, which is Azamir or something like that. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting distracted already. Then we jump over to Szeth, and he's just getting beat up. And then we jump over to Rlain and Renarin, and they are deciding what to do with Ba'edo Mishram. Then we jump back to Kaladin and Syl, who are still trying to convince Ishar that he needs help. He's not really listening. Chapter 133. Back to Adolin. Adolin has a pretty big like breakthrough moment, just kind of mentally, personally. He's like working through some mental stuff as he's battling through Abadai, and kind of all that happens in the beginning of chapter 133. Abadai throws him against the wall, but as he flies across the room, the shard plate that Abadai is wearing, which used to be Adolin's, switches sides, switches allegiance, and flies over and bonds all around Adolin and saves him from dying. And now Adolin's going to turn around and smash Abadai, but that doesn't actually happen in chapter 133. Because we jump over to Szeth, who is still getting beat up by all the other honor bearers, and he's not really fighting back. Szeth does realize in this chapter that the honor bearers are like not real. They're puppets. They are not the people that they seem to be. There maybe are the bodies of, but they're just being kind of puppet mastered by Ishar. And then the end of chapter 133, Szeth turns the tide of that battle. He's no longer getting beat up because he speaks the fifth ideal of the Skybreakers. Yeah, we have so much to talk about this. Fifth, Trevor's looking at me like I got this wrong, and I have not gotten this wrong. Chapter 134. Shallan finishes the stabbing motion. Last time we saw Shallan, she started to stab at Formless. Here we are 3 chapters later, and the stab finally lands in the face of Formless, who is indeed Yatil. Shallan kills her.
Just real quick, I need
Yes.
to put this joke in before we move on. In the book, Shallan has a mental note as she's about to stab Yatil of, I need to do a decisive action before Mraize reacts. And I'm like, okay, this is like split seconds we're talking about here. It's been 2 weeks for me of her holding this knife in front of Yatil's face, and she says, I need to act before Mraize reacts. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But anyway.
The timing of all this is a little hard to follow, as I've ranted about a little bit before. Anyway, Adolin in chapter 134 smashes Abadai, busts out of the throne room to come help the rest of his buddies. Szeth has spoken his fifth ideal, but it does not seem to affect Ishar like they planned. That was their whole game plan, was somebody speaks an ideal and Ishar is awoken and we can reason with him. That does not happen. Ishar is still cranky Ishar. Chapter 135, we're almost there. Maya arrives back with help, and the help is Deadeyes. And they are able to arm Adolin's entire crew, who are not Radiants, in Shardplate and Shardblades with the Deadeyes that Maya has brought back. So there's our surprise twist there. Pretty cool scene. Renarin and Rlain, we flashed to them real quick. They are still deciding on what to do with Mishram, but they kind of reach a decision in this chapter that they're gonna set her free. They don't do that yet, but they decide that they're gonna. We jump over to Szeth. Szeth has just spoken this crazy ideal and then turns around and breaks his oath and dismisses his spren. And Ishar's like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Adolin fights bad guys. Ishar, at the very end of chapter 135, opens up the jar of darkness that he claims he's been holding at bay, and he unleashes it onto everyone present, pretty much. And he says, feel my pain, feel my utter darkness that I've been holding on to, protecting everyone from. Here you go. Builds these like darkness connection things to everybody there. Kaladin, Syl, Szeth, all those. One more chapter to go. Chapter 136, the contest begins. That's like the literal first couple of words of the chapter 136. The contest begins. Gavinor attacks Dalinar. Dalinar's not sure what to do. He's trying to think through this. He's realizing the fullness of the dilemma that Taravangian and the Odium has placed him in. He cannot win. He's got 2 bad choices in front of him. What does he do? We jump back over to Adolin. He's fighting more bad guys. Notum joins up and is fighting them with him. They win, basically. So they hold the throne room. Azir is ours. The contest has started, and Adolin was in control of the throne room, so Azir has been won. Final scene. We are back to Taravangian versus Dalinar in the contest. Taravangian really kind of sets up the scene here. Dalinar, what are you going to do? I am well placed to become the one god for all the Cosmere, no matter what you choose. Dalinar, what is your decision? And that is the end of chapter 136.
Well done, Eliot. Paul, where do you want to start? With your 2 words, I assume?
Yes, we can start with my 2 words. And then if you want my opinion after that, we can go from there. Well done summing that up, by the way, Eliot. That is quite the task. I'm grateful at this point that I don't have to do so, and because there's a lot of moving pieces, as you mentioned, there's a lot going on, and I think we will continue to see a lot going on for a while. So, without further ado, my 2 words this week are Oathbreaker. To be a bit as touch reminiscent of Oathbringer, I actually, whenever I wrote Oathbreaker, I thought like, oh, like the sword, and then I'm like, no, that's obviously not it. I just got mixed up for a second. Oath, because we get the Szeth 5th ideal here, of course, and it's quite, it's the breaker, if you will. It kind of breaks through the problems they're having right now, as well as him then breaking his oath with the spread as well. We will talk about this more. I feel like the elephant in the room is regarding Szeth's 5th ideal, and we'll come back to that. But crazy stuff happening this week. We've got a bit to work through here. Some fun reveals as well.
I don't know if you noticed, Paul, but Eliot had quite the reaction to your words. So, Eliot, what do you got?
Well, I'm a little floored over here. I think in the long distant past, like 150 episodes ago, more than, Paul and I had some crossover, and one of our 2 words were the same. It happened like one time. My words for this episode, 2 of them, are Oathbreaker.
Really?
We've arrived, gentlemen. We
We
finally did it.
actually had it. My goodness, I thought we were going to make it all the way through. I can't believe we made it all the way to the end.
I cannot believe it. We do not share these notes ahead of time. And
Yeah.
honestly, usually I'm coming up with my words like 30 seconds before Trevor asks me, kind of thing. And here we are, for all the exact reasons that you just said that I don't need to repeat because you already said them. Oathbreaker sums up these chapters for me.
All right. We will get there. Actually, we'll get there pretty quick because we're going to start with Szeth. Ishar in 132 is convinced that he's the exception. I'm not crazy. You guys are the crazy ones. I don't care if everyone else on Roshar is crazy. I'm the sane one. And he maintains that stance all throughout this episode. Even with Szeth's 5th ideal. We now count in Vorinism 1, 2, 3, 5, apparently. Thoughts?
So this is so okay. We have not. We've been very blind as to what the community is talking about regarding this. These are very blind thoughts, feelings, opinions. We haven't had any discussion with people who have not read the book yet. Tim has helped us set up our splits, but it is these are our unfiltered, uninfluenced thoughts. And my uninfluenced thoughts were, why wouldn't the 4th ideal have been impactful? It feels odd to me that we've set up this rigid magic system and we are skipping to the 5th ideal, I guess, because we're at the end of this book. And I guess if I want to get into it, it's because that's what was needed here. But it feels very rushed, and I don't know. I feel very mixed on this skipping to the 5th ideal thing for Szeth. The takeaway from it, this whole I am the law and Szeth kind of believing in himself and finally accepting that he can make his own choices, is what I would consider a net good for Szeth. That's the arc we've seen with this character, him being able to decide for himself and things like that. But I don't know. It maybe didn't hit like it should, because I was frankly a bit like, why is this, where did the 5th ideal, or sorry, where did the 4th ideal go? Like, where where is it all together? So I don't know if that's just me being OCD and it's like, no, Paul, just relax. It's fine. You can do that. I don't know. This felt uncharacteristic to me for this series, if that makes sense, because this series has been very by the magic system. You can't break the rules unless you're Shallan, and then you can't like do
Especially if
these
you're a
other things.
Skybreaker, you can't break the rules.
Yes, yeah, precisely. So interesting. So yeah, what are y'all's thoughts specifically on the whole saying the fifth ideal without having a fourth ideal? It also made me think, so is it like normal? Could you go out of order on your ideals and just like gain the select whatever it gives you, essentially, that select like heightening level? Or is it
I
supposed to be linear and like progressive like that?
I have strong feelings on this, but Eliot, do you want to go first?
I'll just add a tiny bit because I actually don't have super strong feelings on this. I feel like this moment worked fairly well for me because it was the development moment that we were trying to get to with Szeth. This is the breakthrough we were trying to get to, which was make your own decisions, bro. Stop living in service to everyone else. Stop asking everyone else what the right thing to do is. You decide. You figure out what the right thing to do is. So having this be that big moment, I think it worked for me. We should hopefully remember to do this, but I feel like at the end of this book, we should do a little bit of a look back on kind of the Knights Radiant structures and the ideals that we've seen and things like that to dig into a little bit, because it'd be fascinating to talk about this like in context with other orders and why is he able to do this? I don't really know. I don't know that it bothers me though.
Yeah. I want to very briefly add, for those who've followed us for a while, like I just want to specify, this was not me not liking the outcome and not liking the payoff and the trajectory of Szeth's character, because I've wanted this moment for quite some time. I've been looking forward to this, and it was good. I was just surprised. I understand that the fifth ideal of the Skybreakers is becoming the law. Nail mentions that several times, so I guess that's what they had to do. But yeah, I was just kind of wondering why it couldn't have been the fourth ideal in some way. I'm sure someone will have a better explanation for that. Like I said, we haven't talked to anyone further. I just don't want to seem ungrateful for this, but I do have my questions on it. But I don't want to seem ungrateful, because these are some pretty epic and awesome moments to witness, you know.
For those of you currently typing in the comments or reply to Paul, don't worry, I got you. This moment works flawlessly for me, at least, and here's why. We know what the fourth ideal for the Skybreakers is, right? It's his quest, cleanse Shinovar. That's the problem. We need to swear an ideal so that Ishar gets his moment of lucidity, so that we can fix Ishar, so that we can cleanse Shinovar. But that's the problem. We can't swear the ideal until we cleanse Shinovar, and we need the ideal to cleanse Shinovar. So the issue that Szeth is struggling with this entire book, that Eliot was saying, of making his own decisions, acknowledging that I am in control of my own life, that is his fifth ideal. I am the law. I make my decisions. You guys suck. I'm going to go find the other Skybreakers. That's what we've been pushing Szeth to do. So specifically because he's a Skybreaker, he can skip his fourth ideal and go to the fifth, because that's, well, we knew what they were beforehand, but Szeth didn't even realize he was pushing towards the fifth until he was there and was like, I'm ready to swear my fifth. I'm skipping it. I thought it was great. It was a great surprise moment. No, I don't think anybody would have predicted we're skipping the fourth ideal. Like, I've always wondered how Brandon's going to do all these twists, because his fandom is so big now that everybody, like, everything's got to be thought of, right? Like the Gav thing, which we'll get into later. But I thought this was great. It was a great twist. It fit with where Szeth was currently. It fast forwarded the plot, like you said, but I think you did it correctly in that we don't need to wait for our fourth to swear the fifth. That's where Szeth is right now. Cool surprise. Worked great for me.
I see what you mean. That it's like, okay, I guess the fifth ideal sort of included the fourth ideal
Right.
along the
If
way.
if you want to think about it that way, yeah.
I guess that's what I'm understanding now is the fifth ideal was also the fourth ideal because that's what was needed to kind of complete this quest cleansing Shinovar somewhat. I anticipate.
But it doesn't work. We'll get there, but it doesn't
Yeah,
work.
yeah, yeah.
Ishar's got his
You're right.
barrier up.
You're right. Yeah, which was also like crazy because it's like that's what I've been waiting for this whole scene. So I'm waiting for this ideal to come out, and then they get a brief moment to talk to Ishar, but he's like, "No, I don't care. Actually, just deal with it." You know.
He had a moment of weakness against Dalinar, and it's like, oh, can't have that. Better build up my connection wall or whatever he's got going on. So, yeah, it doesn't work.
And then Trevor, you said skipping to the fifth ideal was the big surprise. I think what happens next is a bigger surprise. He goes fifth ideal, that the pinnacle, all the power, all the answers. And I think this is actually split across a bunch of chapters. Actually, I think he hits fifth. And then there's like 2 chapters. And then we get back, like the very first time we get back to Szeth, like Szeth's actual perspective, he breaks his oath. He dismisses his spren, which, remember, we've learned that in the Skybreaker world, at least with these guys, the spren view themselves as the knight and the radiant as the apprentice. So the apprentice reaches fifth ideal and then turns and dismisses his knight and says, see ya, buddy. I don't like you guys. Trevor, you mentioned this a second ago. I'm going to go find the, what do they call them?
Dissenters? The dissenters.
Yeah, the dissenters. But he's not radiant anymore. He no longer has a spren. He no longer has surge binding. He is regular human. 2 minutes after being superhuman.
Which, by the way, don't we get a glimpse of what he gets with the fifth ideal? Was it a shield? Am I remembering that right? Doesn't he get some kind of like?
I don't remember.
Other thing?
I don't recall something like that, but I could.
I feel like I remember.
He does summon some sort of shield. You are correct.
Does he?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Was he's kind of like doing all this stuff, and he gets like a shield? Is what I thought he got.
But then he dismisses it.
Yeah, and then he scraps it all. You know.
Right.
Which, you know, I know it's been hard this book to not reference other books, and so I know for our listeners sometimes we like put up a brief like spoiler warning for another story and things like that. It's been hard. I anticipate that everyone who's listening to us now has read about everything, but I would say going into this which, to say it directly, spoilers warning for those who have not read the secret projects, namely Sunlit Man. Coming into this book, I think we expected, or didn't expect, but didn't we guess or theorize that Szeth might lose his spren? I knew we knew this with Sigil, but I could be remembering also there were a lot of theories thrown around at Dragonsteel about this.
You're going to bring back this theory?
And I'm not going to bring back the main one. Fun fact, at Dragonsteel, there was someone who I really hope she's doing well. There was someone who had a really strong theory that Szeth himself was going to become the spren in Sunlit Man Auxiliary. Had a whole roundabout way of doing that. I didn't buy into that, even though I wanted to. But
That's what I thought you were going to bring up.
what we no yes, but what a lesser version of that is that Szeth's spren specifically would be the spren in Sunlit Man that Sigzil has, and that is now the likely possible because he's kicked his
No.
spren to the curb.
No. 12124 is not auxiliary.
Oh, you
don't
think not?
12124 is
No.
auxiliary?
No.
Really?
Let me.
I think it's obvious after these chapters.
He calls him an auxiliary to his knight, but that
Yes,
does not
and-
mean he is auxiliary.
And you
Let
know
me-
what? You know what happens, Trevor. I'm so sorry. I will give you the reins in 1 second, but I have to. Okay, so he says you've made yourself an auxiliary to your knight. I'm paraphrasing, right? And berating him, Ishar berates the spren that he cared too much, or that he, let himself, I guess, get too involved, or something that the Skybreaker spren are not supposed to do. And what he says after that is that such a bad thing? This spren is different from the other Skybreaker spren that we've seen, and that is a good thing, and that is absolutely going to come up. I don't think probably in this book, maybe like an epilogue thing. I don't know. Maybe it'll come up in this book, but he's gonna come up to Sigzil, and Sigzil's gonna be like, "Well, what's your name?" And he's just gonna adopt this name of auxiliary. Like, that's absolutely what's happening here. He is gonna make himself an auxiliary to his squire, apprentice, knight, because he's different from the other Skybreakers. I'm surprised you don't think that. I'm actually shocked. This is absolutely the reveal.
Go ahead, Eliot.
Well, I was going to jump in and read the passage, but I don't think I need to because Paul, I think from memory, you paraphrased nearly word for word as I was reading through the section. So you said all the things I was about to just read out of the book. I am absolutely camp auxiliary. This is auxiliary is not capitalized here. I was kind of looking for that, right? It's not, but yeah, this is spelled out for us. This is a nod. This is the Easter egg. This is the, hey, if you've read Sunlit Man, boom, here it is.
All right,
And
all
they
right. Hold on.
Okay, go ahead. Say your stupid little prediction.
But what?
It's not real and not going
What?
to be
Hold
true.
on. No. I'm not predicting anything because there's nothing here to predict. The auxiliary is one of the top 5 characters in the entire Cosmere, and 12124 is a loser. How can these two be the same character?
Because this is the moment. Because this is the moment.
Yeah.
No, see, I think if we ever revisit that story, or if this ever gets confirmed, I think you read Sunlit Man and then you reflect back on this moment here, where 12124, 24601 or whatever his name is goes from loser to guy who wants to actually do the right thing. It's this moment here where it's actually
No.
Nails Spren
Yeah.
who's kind of hitting him with this, and he's like,
Yeah.
dude, you are auxiliary till you're human. Get control of this. Come on, bro. And he responds back, Paul, you said this exact thing. Is that so bad? Like, I think that's the moment where he's like, no, wait, this is a partnership, not a me tell the dude what to do. And so then Sigzil is where he gets it right. Sigzil is where he actually digs in, comes into it from the approach of like, hey, we're partners in this. And you get everything you see in Sunlit Man, which is amazing.
Mm-hmm. This made Sunlit Man so much cooler to me. I have not been the biggest Sunlit Man fan, but this is so cool because we've wanted to see these good Skybreakers. Throughout this whole story, we've only seen, frankly, very bad Skybreakers.
True.
And then you get this with Sigzil and Sunlit Man, the Skybreaker Order, in all its glory for what it can be. And you see auxiliary. That's the most of a Skybreaker spin we've ever seen, is through auxiliary in that book. And you're right, they have a partnership. They are a great pair and all these things. And that is not, we have learned in this book, that is definitively not the case with Skybreaker spread.
Oh, And it goes, it comes.
Hold on.
No, I gotta finish
All
it.
right,
I gotta finish it.
Go ahead.
And we're going full spoilers here. If you've not read Sunlit Man, skip ahead right now because I'm ruining the entire book for you. It comes to complete, like, I'm dead serious. Please skip ahead. This will ruin the entire book for you if you listen to this. It comes full circle because Auxiliary sacrifices himself for Sigzil. Like no Skybreaker spren would ever do that, and we didn't know that at the time we read that, and we know that now. Like the spren of Nail is saying, "You're the important one here. Get it together." And he turns around and then sacrifices himself for his radiant. Oh man.
No,
I cannot believe
hold on.
you do not think this is Auxiliary.
In 3 weeks, when we get a Szeth epilogue, or when we get one of the epilogues and it's Szeth, and he's back at the tower, and he goes and talks to Sigzil, and Sigzil's like down in the dumps because he doesn't have a spread. He's like, "Hey man, I'm gonna go find the dissenters. You want to come with me?" And Sigzil's like, "All right." And then they go off and go find Auxiliary.
Yes, but this, as in this spren being Auxiliary. Yes,
12124 is so lame, and Auxiliary is so cool. There's no way there's a bridge there. Absolutely not.
No, I do. I want to talk about this more, actually, Trevor, because
I got all night.
Yes, absolutely. I'm here all night.
We're still
Brandon
on
Sanderson.
We're still on Szeth.
Brandon Sanderson has done a genius job with this, and I didn't realize how genius until we've been talking about it now. Okay. I hated 12124 from the beginning. He's just there to sabotage Szeth. He's just trying to get him killed. He's worthless. He's like only making things harder for Szeth than it needs to be. Not letting him use his surges, not being like a shard blade. Like, I don't know. There's just all scenario after scenario where he would, and then he'd show up $1 late, like a day late and $1 short. And it was just always terrible. And then you kind of get this, like, is he a plant? Is he like intentionally sabotaging? Is he just really bad at his job? At first you start thinking maybe he's like a spy from Odium or something, or Nail, corrupted spren, doing the wrong things intentionally. Then you're kind of eased into this, no, he's just not a very good spren. And he starts to get better, and he starts talking with Syl, and we have all these other things where you kind of get this moment of like, also this whole emphasis on you don't have a name, you're 12124, makes it all the more meaningful when he has this moment here where he's told, "Oh, you stupid spren, you shouldn't be an auxiliary to your Radiant." And he takes that, he's going to reflect, the wheels are going to start turning in his spren brain about this auxiliary. Absolutely. If you are right, I am upset. And Brandon intentionally baited us into truly just wasting a meaningful moment that he threw in an Easter egg for to mean nothing and to do nothing. Absolutely has wasted it if it's not the case.
Okay. Then where's 12124's British accent, Paul? Because Auxiliary's got a British accent.
It's a different audiobook reader this time, right? They didn't. Michael Kramer didn't do Sunlit Man. So
they made that mistake already with letting accents betray a character person. So
it's like Galadon is in this book, but he sounds different than when I listened to the audiobook of Elantris. So okay.
That actually reminds me of something that's actually in this episode about the accent thing, which I do want to actually talk about real quick. Are we done with the auxiliary thing?
Yes, I'll let you rest now that you're incredibly wrong. I'll finally let you go on that.
Eliot, something that you would not have noticed, but we would have if Paul was listening closely. For the epigraphs, our narrator changed for the epigraphs. Paul, did you notice this? For the first half, or for the first 7 chapters of day 10, Kate Redding reads the epigraphs. And then after that, it switches to Michael Kramer.
I don't think I noticed this actually.
That's confusing.
And I've read next week. I lost my camera. Did I lose my camera?
Yeah, you
did.
have a permanent
Hold on.
smile on your face.
I have a devious smirk. Hold on. Oh, I really lost my camera.
There you go. So you know.
He's back.
Yeah.
Rebel friend.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
What was I saying?
Accents. It's changed. I'm confused.
Yes, epigraph reader. The epigraph reader has changed. And I think the author has changed too. But I will talk about it
What?
more next week. It's the same
What?
book, but I think the author has changed.
I'm looking forward to your thoughts on this because that doesn't make any sense.
I thought, hasn't Kate Redding done several epigraphs before?
Yes, but
Does it
she
depend on the chapter
it
typically?
it depends on who is writing the epigraph. Like Navani's epigraphs, Kate Redding does. Or Noadon's epigraphs, Michael Kramer does. And it switches. It switches in day 10.
Can't believe I've never noticed this before. Like, not just here in day 10, like previously.
Oh, I always pay attention to who's reading the epigraph and with what voice, ever since reading a certain book. Okay. We have Szeth. Let's talk about Adolin. Adolin is successful against Abadai after like a 10 chapter brawl with him. And he is finally successful. He steals back his shard plate, or at least his shard plate jumps back to him voluntarily, which was pretty cool. And he has a resolution of, it is okay that my father has not lived up to what I thought he was. And that means I don't have to be perfect. And that means I get to be a mix of both what my mother and my father tried to make me. I thought this was great. What'd you guys think?
I also thought this was quite good. A little hard for me to spend the mental time on it that I think it deserved. It's sandwiched in here. Classic Brandon Sanderland here. There are so many big things all happening here at the same time. We have Szeth skipping to the 5th ideal. We have Dalinar facing no other than Gavinor in the contest, right? And then snuck in here is some big stuff for Adolin that I think this section was better than I even realized, and I've read it twice now. And I think there's still more in here. Like, I need to go back and read it a 3rd or a 4th time to get the stuff out of here. Because as he's fighting, literally it's one sentence is the action description of what's happening in the battle. And then the next 3 sentences are Adolin coming to grips with the role of his father and his mother and wrestling with, can I accept my father as he is? And then he does. In this chapter, kind of that people don't have to be perfect. My father doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to be perfect. I can still do this. It felt pretty powerful. Pretty powerful.
Can I read it?
Oh, absolutely.
You are radiant. You must be, Abadai demanded. Do you see Stormlight rising from me? Then how? How? Why? Because he had promised to help Aesir. Because his mother had trained him to care. As Dalinar had worked to make Adolin into a weapon, Evie had worked to make Adolin into one that had meaning. There, within the burning clarity of the perfect duel, Adolin went a level deeper. He understood himself in a way otherwise impossible. Why had he always cared so much that his father be perfect? Why be so worried, then so furious when Dalinar proved flawed? Because Evie had believed in Dalinar. Against all evidence, she loved him. And Adolin, her little boy, desperately wanted her to be right. That was why. That was the final truth of it. With a sigh, Adolin let go. He let her rest. and let his anger flow away like expelled heat from a flame. There were many things Adolin could never become, but this one was possible. He could be the man Evie envisioned, a man who cared and a man who fought for a purpose.
Let me add a section to that, actually. It's a page later, but it adds to that moment. It was at that moment that Adolin knew for certain nothing he could do would be enough. No matter how good he was with the sword, it wouldn't be enough. Abadai dropped his blade, which fell and stuck point first into the floor, and pulled the remains of Adolin's sword tip out of his helmet. Adolin stabbed him in the eye, but it didn't kill him. All while Adolin dangled in his grip, helpless. The eye healed and began glowing again. Sometimes your best wasn't enough. It was the lesson every general had to learn. Adolin had never expected to learn it in a duel. There's a lot packed in here in this this segment with Adolin dueling with a candlestick against shard bearer Abadai.
This might be my favorite section in the book we've covered so far. I think it's that good.
And then it goes into, there's bits and pieces woven in here. It's actually been mentioned, I think, slightly before in some of the previous glimpses we've gotten on Adolin. He zeroes in, he zooms in on this idea, this concept of promises, not oaths. You know, Adolin's been our kind of one and only character now who's not a Radiant, who has kind of resisted that storyline, that plot line of bonding a Spren. He's never really even tried to bond a Spren or become that. He's kind of pushed against the, you know, I don't need to speak oaths to go down my path. But then here in these chapters, he kind of latches on to promises and how promises are more powerful than oaths. I don't know if I quite followed all of his logic, but he definitely was kind of grabbing and running with this. And then this kind of goes into this next chapter where his squad becomes the unoathed. Can't even really say that word. Unoathed.
Yeah, Michael Kramer trips it up too. He goes, unoathed. I'm like, that's a word?
Yeah. This was a really good scene. I feel like Adolin needs some sort of title of being like the king or the leader or savior of the like Deadeye Spren or something, because like Maya, his sword, these other people coming in, and the shard plate here, just like everything kind of supporting him. But he has these really cool moments, and I think this is a really good fulfillment of what he's wrestled with. I feel like since Oathbringer is really where we started to see this, because back in Words of Radiance, he kills Sadeas, right? And then we kind of have the drama, the like there's a bit of a rift between him and Dalinar and family and things like that at that time. I feel like we're getting to see some of the getting beyond that, if you will. Which has been cool to see. I love Adolin. These moments are cool. It's not it's a great moment. It's not my favorite of this. I mean, we got a Szeth 5th ideal. It's hard for me to get past that as being my favorite moment.
Yeah.
But I also am like, I'm struggling to get past if Adolin is not dead in this book, like he's never gonna die, which has been great because I love Adolin. Like, man, he has been through the ringer over and over, barely surviving in this one for sure. It's wild what he's been pushing through.
Everything I just read feels like there should be an ideal at the end of that, in quotes. You know, like every ideal we've seen, there's this whole page of internal dialogue for their character. They're struggling with something. They're struggling. They finally reach a resolution in their brain. They release something, and then they say an oath. And Adolin releases it, and it's like beats the crap out of Abadai. That's his oath. So I I just feel like Brandon is trying to give Adolin his oath moment without making him a Knight Radiant, which, however you want to interpret that, good or bad, he's really trying to give Adolin this moment here, and I think he delivers.
And I think it's even punctuated with the unoathed title and scene. Because you're right, I agree. I think we've built into something that for any other character would have been an ideal, and for Adolin it's not. And it's punctuated even further with. I think this quote is great and could be really fun moment in a movie with the unoathed arm up quote, where the shard plate just starts to appear out of the air, and the shard blade just all appear. Soldiers who we've been with for a while, and they're beleaguered. They don't know if they can face the battle, and then here's the moment where boom, now they're all super troopers and can take on the enemy. Could be super cool. Could be super cool. I felt like the scene was missing a little bit, and I'm not quite sure what. I can't quite put my fingers on it.
This is one of the rare scenes that I thought would look better on the screen.
Yes.
Than I thought there would be like an epic. We're missing the epic pause, like the dramatic when the swords appear and everybody just, like, both singers and our 10 non-combatants who turn into combatants kind of just stare at the swords. Like, that's the moment we're missing. Because I agree that the text is fine, but I think it pales in comparison to his Abadai moment 2 chapters previous. And I think this is supposed to be the really cool moment of the shard blades, but there's something missing, and I agree with you. But I think it's just the dramatic pause. Like, everybody's just gaping at these swords, and then we grab them, and then it would work.
Yeah, I think you might be right. That mixed with, just the right musical score with the emphasis in the right places.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit of guidance in the pacing, the processing of what all's happening here. We're middle Sanderlanche, so we're just reading frantically, right? You're just boom, 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 next. You don't get to give this brief little moment that's packed in amongst so many other moments. Maybe it's justice. Whereas in a movie, it probably would get its own 2 minutes or whatever, dedicated to it. But very cool scene. I enjoyed it a lot.
And we finally got to figure out what Maya was doing. We've brought that up like 10 times on this podcast.
Yeah, for real. Like, how long has Maya been gone? Do we remember what day it is that she left? Was it day 2?
It's as soon as he shows up to Azir. Like, he goes through the Azir gate, and it's like, hey, we don't have enough defenses. And Maya's like, all right, see ya. So maybe it's day 3, something like that.
Yeah, it's got to be like day 3 or 4 or something along those lines, because it's once the fight has begun, isn't it? Or
no,
about
I don't think
right.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think the
just before the fighting is begun. Okay, because yeah, it's been quite a while, like a long time. But yeah, finally is back. One thing that is interesting, Trevor, you're right. It does feel like Brandon is trying to give Adolin the next ideal sentiment without making him a Knight Radiant, which I'm all for. I don't think everyone needs to be a Radiant. I think it's cool. I think it's good to show that. But I don't know. I do kind of want a tangible. I don't know. I like with one thing that I miss with this is and I'm already thinking of ways that what I'm thinking is wrong. So with Kaladin is a great example. Syl, we've seen her get stronger, more confident, and grow in all these ways as their bond has grown. And I was thinking, and I was like, well, I kind of wish Adolin had something like that too. But we have seen that maybe more than the others because Maya has absolutely grown. So you can forget. I said nothing. You can ignore that. Move forward.
Sorry,
I just wasn't thinking through that.
You'll get your progression moment when he walks up to Dalinar in the epilogue and he says, "I forgive you."
There we go. Of course.
Dalinar might be dead, but he will he will walk up to Dalinar and
Oof.
say, "I forgive you." All right. We have a brief but important Shallan, Renarin, and Rlain segment in here. Renarin and Rlain have found Ba Ado Mishram, and they're holding up the gemstone. They're like, "All right, we're gonna break it," and then we cut away, and we cut back, and they're like, "All right, we're gonna break it," and then we cut away, and then we come back, like, "I think we should break it." I thought that I couldn't get that out of my head. Every time I came back to Renarin and Rlain, they're holding it up and they're looking at it and they're like, "We should break it," and it just like 5 times. Did you guys get that?
It's like 3, but yes, their scene progresses in very much slow motion.
Yeah,
compared to the rest.
they got to the gemstone like 4 chapters too early.
Yes.
They
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Dalinar's like, "Hold on," or Dalinar. Brandon Sanderson's like, "Okay, pause that for real quick. We'll keep cutting back to you, dramatic, like the ring about to melt into Mount Doom." But anyway.
I was gonna say it didn't feel that drawn out to me, which Brandon Sanderson is very good at doing that. I still think back to what the end of the previous book, Rhythm of War, where it was like, and Kaladin fell, and then it's like cuts back, and then it cuts back again, and it's like, and
Yep.
Kaladin was going to attack, and then it was like 5 cutbacks before you like actually saw what happened in the next scene. So it didn't feel quite that bad to me. It felt significant because they were like, should we do this? We should totally do this, right? And
Now, it's very important to mention that you're not supposed to stop here for 2 weeks and reread these chapters like 6 times.
you're
So
right.
to me,
Yeah.
they're just sitting here holding this gemstone for 2 weeks. But
Yeah, it could be the next page. So
right.
who knows? So that's a very fair point. Yeah.
All right, Shallan is 1v2. She has made the deduction that Yatil has been hiding in Formless this entire time, which I think it was last episode. I said if that was the case, I'd be a big fan, and I am. I am a big fan that Formless is not actually back, and we were just supposed to think that, and Shallan really has moved past Formless, and it was Yatil the whole time preying on her fears that Formless would never get out of her head. I think that's great. Shallan figures that out, turns around, stabs Yatil in the eye, and Yatil's dead. What's our death count for day 10 so far? For like actual important characters?
It's Yatil, right? And
Anybody else die yet?
Well, it depends on how deep you want to go. Like Abadai just died.
Yeah, we'll count him too. We killed some honor bearers, didn't we?
Yes.
So 3, 4 ish. We'll
Yes.
keep it. We'll keep an ish tally of how many people died day 5 or day 10.
yeah, I'm now
Ish tally.
questioning. I feel like these should not be the last ones. I anticipate.
I think that's
it's
safe prediction there, Paul.
You're right.
No, it's a Brandon Sanderson book. No one actually dies. Remember?
I was gonna say, like we're looking at Adolin, who is alive and well at the time of this episode, and if he is alive and well at this moment, like there's no telling who's gonna not die but should be dead.
I will say, I'm 100% with you, Trevor, on this Formless thing. I think we have to go back and renege some of the early Wind and Truth chapters we had. The first time Shallan went into the spiritual realm and Formless was there. And we were all confused about that. And going back and saying, Trevor, I think you maybe even straight up said it. This makes that giant scene at the end of Rhythm of War meaningless.
Right.
And I think I agreed with you. And I was thinking, because I loved that scene. I thought that was so powerful for Shallan, the way she kind of overcame some really big things in Rhythm of War. And then we go here and it's like, oh, boom, Formless is back. So now I have to go back and rethink Shallan's entire development through this whole book.
Well, for me, I don't
But in
have
a
to rethink
good
it. I think
way.
I think it completely flipped it for me. That
Yes.
I was disappointed in some serious backtracking that we had with Shallan's character.
Yeah.
But that was the whole point. Is
Yeah.
we're preying on Shallan's fears that she'll never be rid of this.
Right.
And the fact is she has progressed. She just needed to realize this isn't actually me. This is an imposter.
Yes.
I thought it was great.
I like that far better. I like this a lot, actually.
Oh, I could not agree more. By the way, I was a little bit frustrated about that. I did say, that I think everyone was going to kind of revisit their problems in the spiritual realm, and that is still somewhat the case, but it wasn't really Formless, which was, I think, the best of both worlds of that kind of a moment of panic. But I also think it was cool that Shallan figures that out, by the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought that was good.
And then we go into a pretty cool opportunity for redemption moment, which I liked, which also is pretty consistent with Shallan's story arc, where she turns and she creates a light weaving of Mraize. And she turns to him and she tries to reach out to him and give him a chance to join the dark side. I mean, the light side, and choose to be a hero. And she's done
Together
this before,
we can
right?
Rule the galaxy.
Yeah, exactly. Or yeah, something like that. She's done this before, right? Where she'll draw somebody as a better version of themselves, and it can lift people into becoming a hero version of themselves. And she does that here with Mraize, and she gives him that choice. You're free of your master. You can choose to be on the good team, which I thought it was a pretty cool moment.
I cannot get the 11th medal out of my head. Or is it gold? One of them shows your alternate futures of like what you could be. The 11th medal is your past. It's gold. So Vin, Mistborn, minor Mistborn Final Empire spoilers. Vin burns gold and sees like alternate versions of herself, and it like freaks her out, and I never want to burn gold again. And she never does. And I can't not draw that parallel every time she does this, where she'll draw someone, or she'll even just talk to someone, and as she's like, sketching them real quick, I think she does this with Kalak at the beginning of this book, and Kalak's like, hey, do you always tap into fortune when you draw? That's pretty cool. And so now I'm wondering, is there some sort of direct magic system connection between gold, fortune, and whatever the heck Shallan's doing with her double light weaving, like dual wielding pattern in the Testament? I don't know. That's something for the theory panel question at Dragonsteel. Anything else on the everything else besides Dalinar stuff?
I think we got it all and just have chapter 136 to go, pretty much.
Yes, by the time we get back to Dalinar, which again, if you're reading this as intended, this is supposed to be like half an hour for you. No. This has been weeks for me. We're back to the Contest of Champion at 136. It has officially begun, which we cut over way to Adolin real quick, and we won! We won Azir! Yay! We're
Yippee.
one out of 6 or whatever we were going for. We won Azir. The contest has officially begun. There's no more tricks. It is Gavilar versus Gavinor versus Dalinar. And Dalinar is trying his best to get out of it as he's trying to run away from his grandnephew with his Heartblade. What do you guys think?
So I think this is the moment where we finally realize the entirety of the dilemma that Odium has crafted here. The terrible dilemma that he's placed Dalinar in. He is telling Dalinar that he has two options. And throughout this chapter, Dalinar wrestles kind of back and forth between these two options. The two options are kill your grandnephew.
Correct. Grandnephew.
kill your grandnephew, the innocent, but beat Odium, or surrender. And the way I was kind of viewing these in my mind, trying to wrap my head around it, is Dalinar feels like he loses either way. And the reason why is if he kills Gavinor, that will be a moral defeat for him, because that is what Taravangian would do. Taravangian would not hesitate. He destroyed the entirety of his own city, his own children, his own grandchildren, everyone he knew, because he felt like he needed to do it for the purposes of the larger picture.
Mhm.
So a Taravangian in Dalinar's shoes would not hesitate one instant. He would just kill his grandnephew. So
I know you're going to put that to a second point, so let me put a pin
yes.
right here. I want to come back to this. Somebody remind me about the Carbron thing, because I've been meaning to mention this for weeks.
Okay.
I want to talk about the Carbron thing, but not right now. Keep going.
Carbron in a second. But first, that is, if Dalinar kills Gavinor, that is a moral defeat for Dalinar, because he will be admitting by doing that Taravangian's way is right. That there are times when you do the evil thing for the greater good, which up until now Dalinar has said you don't do. The journey is above the destination. So he feels like he can't do that.
He even says in this chapter, there are prices that aren't worth paying to win.
Yes.
In quotes. He finally, someone, like, we've been talking about this for this whole book. Well,
Yep.
I feel like the second half of this book. There are prices that are not worth paying for peace.
Yep.
And Dalinar finally says exactly that.
Which I think ties in some Kaladin Szeth conversation. I think it's Kaladin Szeth.
Where the Kaladin Szeth stuff, and then the Yasna Taravangian stuff, like
the
whole package here.
Yes. So, but the other option is to surrender, which is like literal defeat. That is just giving up, and Taravangian wins. He gets Dalinar under his control to turn into a fused or whatever else he's going to do, and make him the general of his Cosmere conquering army. So do you sacrifice your morals to beat the bad guy? Or do you hold to your morals and let the bad guy win? That's the dilemma.
Expertly crafted by Brandon Sanderson over 5 long books. Just wanted to dwell on that for a second. They reference the King's Dilemma that Taravangian and Dalinar talk about way back in Oathbreaker. Taravangian joins the coalition. He's the first monarch to join the coalition. And there's some quiet hearth scene. They specifically say it in this chapter. Do you remember when we sat by that fake hearth and we talked about the king who had 4 suspects and couldn't prove? So do you kill all 4, or do you let them all go? And Dalinar says, you have to let them all go if you can't prove without a shadow of a doubt. And Taravangian says, nope, you kill all 4. And ever since then, there's been this division between Taravangian and Dalinar, which has obviously gotten wider since then. But that's the first like wedge between them. And it all comes back to that small conversation in Oathbringer. Excellent work from Brandon Sanderson.
This is like, I found myself like, what do you do? You know, I imagine this puts the readers that, like, obviously Dalinar's in a tough spot, but you know, we're in his shoes here as the readers, and like, what do you do? Like, you're truly in a lose-lose, or like, yeah, like you have to lose if you want to win. Like, it's just there's no great scenario. So it is. Do y'all? I have a question for y'all with that. Do y'all think we are going to end in great tragedy, where either of those options plays out?
Well,
Either he kills Gavinor and wins the contest of champions, or he refuses and loses the contest of champions. Do y'all still feel that that will happen? No matter what he does, do you think it's going to be that, or is there going to be some kind of catastrophe where the day is saved by some other means?
I'm going to reject your question because I'm not going to pretend I haven't read for next week. But because I have read for next week, I will answer your question next week.
I
think you could still answer it, but I see what you mean.
There's plenty of info. So if you've been listening along with us, there's plenty of info next week that will inform my answer. So I'm not going to answer without that informed information.
Okay.
I can give you part of an answer because I remember thinking it in this moment. I remember pausing at the end of this chapter to think, oh shoot, what would I do? Because that's how I read fantasy. We've talked about this a couple of times throughout our journey on this, right? Is the whole point of reading fantasy is to shape who I am, is to put myself in the shoes of these people and think, oh man, what lessons are they learning? What questions are they having to face? And what would I do? How would my morals, how would my beliefs shape what I would do here? So I remember pausing here and thinking, what is Dallin going to do? I was 100% sure, and I'm still in this camp of, I don't think there's any situation or scenario where Dalinar kills Gavinor. Now, the alternative Taravangian has set up to be a pretty terrible option. So it seems unthinkable that Dalinar is just going to surrender and go off to be the fused general of the Cosmere conquering Odium army. But I think it is unthinkable for Dalinar to kill Gavinor, because that would be a confusing shattering of everything Dalinar has wrestled with so far.
Over the past 5 books, yeah.
Over the past 6,000 pages, Dalinar has wrestled over and over with, what do I believe? Where am I going with this? How do I stick to what is the right thing to do? He is so deep in this walk the way, do the right thing. Each little choice that I make matters. Do the next, take the next step. Be the better man the next day. There's no way. Brandon, please do not make me eat these words. There is no way. There's no way he turns around after all of that and the solution is we sacrifice Gavinor. Even if, logically that ends up being the best solution. I can't dismiss that as the absolutely not decision here. But I think there's no way Dalinar arrives at that decision. No way.
Okay. Fair. I also can't picture. Yeah, I can't picture Dalinar actually doing that. So I would agree with you. Cool.
I do like what you said maybe a couple episodes ago, 1 episode ago, Eliot, that of course we have to time dilate Gavinor.
Yes.
Because there's absolutely no way that Dalinar would stab his 5-year-old grandnephew.
Right.
There is a slim chance, and Dalinar considers it for about half a second in this chapter of, well, he is a willing combatant, so I could just take it as its face and no, I'm not going to do that. You were exactly right, Eliot. Because he's an able-bodied adult and has made this conscious decision, he considers it for a second to fight Gavinor. And then he's like, absolutely not. This boy was groomed since he was 5 years old by an evil god, and there's absolutely no way I can put that on him.
Yeah.
No. I really liked that moment because, Eliot, you hit it right on the head that Taravangian had to do that to make the contest a contest.
Speaking of Taravangian and the evil god, you had a Kharbranth thought about 2 minutes ago.
Okay, so Kharbranth, I have been obsessed with the Taravangian pact with Odium at the end of Oathbreaker for 5 years, ever since I read it. 6 years. To recap for you, Taravangian goes to Odium and pleads with him at the end of Oathbreaker. I know you're going to win. This is Taravangian talking. I know you're going to win. I'll join you. Spare Carbronth. I will help you. I will do whatever you need to do. I will give you the entire diagram. I'll help you take down Dalinar. Spare Carbronth. What was it? Our day 7 interludes? Our day 8 interludes? Cultivation attacks Carbronth. And Taravangian's like, oh no. But not oh no for my family. It's oh no, I have a weakness. I need to take it out myself. And wipes Carbronth off the face of the earth. I still think that is the most important interlude we had in this entire book. I think Taravangian broke I think Odium broke an oath with Taravangian. And I think there's going to be schism between the vessel and the shard before the end of this book. And I think that's going to be important. I think it's very important that Odium, the shard, destroyed Carbronth and went against his oath to Taravangian that he made 2 books ago. This whole like super important super attention to detail that Brandon Sanderson's been doing over the last several days of the Austin debate, bringing up her random letter that she had, that one prologue back in Words of Radiance, and then that one conversation that we had with Dalinar and Taravangian and Oathbringer. These really small details really matter to Brandon Sanderson. They really matter to Odium. They really matter to the story. I think Odium broke an oath with Taravangian, and I think that's going to matter. And I've been meaning to bring this up for weeks, and I just keep forgetting. What do you guys think?
I really like what you're saying. I remember this at the time, and I think it carries more weight to me now than at that time. I remember at that time I was just like, oh my gosh, Carbronth is gone. Like, I wasn't really thinking beyond that. I'm like, where is he going to destroy next? But you're right. And if there is going to be any semblance of a technicality or an attention to detail thing, I feel like you might have hit the nail on the head with that. You're extremely wrong about auxiliary earlier, but this is a different topic, and you might be onto something with it.
I got the light bulb moment when we had the discussion about Jasnah and the debate. Eliot, you brought up the fact that if Jasnah and Fen knew about Carbronth, Taravangian would lose this debate, but they don't. And so the fact that they don't know makes Jasnah lose the debate. But when we find out, I think it's going to be quite important. And it better happen soon because I'm running out of pages.
Well, that was the one thing I was going to add there, actually, was that I think you're onto something, 100%. I wonder if maybe that's actually a future thing.
Oh,
like,
okay, yeah.
Like there's an epigraph in this book where Odium is defeated but not gone. And it's like, oh, okay, and Odium's going to plot for revenge in the future. But then we get hinted at there that...
You mean an epilogue? You said epigraph.
Thank you. Yes, not an epigraph. Epilogue. Epilogue in this book where Odium is licking his wounds, recovering, plotting his revenge. And then there's a crack in the relationship between Odium and Taravangian, and it's because of that.
I could see it. But Taravangian is not holding on to the shard by the end of the book. Anyway, by intermission, is going to come take the throne.
It could happen.
Anything else?
I think that covers all the notes that I took. There's a lot in here. There's a lot. As I fully expected. This is Sanderlanche at its highest. The snow and ice is raining down on us as it shoots us down the mountainside of Wind and Truth. Final chapters.
Paul, will we get confirmation if that's auxiliary by the end of the book? Or if this just supposed to be like the...
Well, we already got it. We just did.
I know you guys think so, but...
So, okay. Do I think we got confirmation? So the question you're asking is specifically, will we get confirmation that this is auxiliary by the end of the book? Or that auxiliary ends up with somebody by the
That
end of the book?
Will we get confirmation that 12124 is auxiliary?
Yes, that has just happened. That is absolutely the confirmation. And I think it's comical you don't think that's what it is. If we're talking about the next, like, going from there, like, auxiliary, the spread that I would call itself auxiliary,
Uh-huh.
bonding a radiant in this book, I have gone back and forth. That was my instant thought of, are we going to see that happen? And ooh, if it happens, it's going to be in an epilogue scenario. But I don't know if it is for that. It could totally be back half. So I don't. I'm not attached to that happening, but this is absolutely the reveal and the confirmation, and it's comical that you don't think it is. If I'm gonna let it rest. Yes, I'll leave it there.
Sanderson just used the word as a little bait for you guys, and that's all it was. All right. Thanks for joining me, Paul and Eliot. Next week we have... Hold that thought. 137 through 142 of Wind and Truth. Thanks for joining me, Paul and Eliot.
Peace out.
Toodles.